TE Talks with Guides is a weekly podcast for lovers of history, travel, and all things Italian.
Welcome back, everybody, to TE Talks, sponsored by Through Eternity Tours. I'm your host, Rob Allen, and on TE Talks, we get to talk with some of the most fascinating people who make a living out of being wonderful storytellers. Today, I'm going to take you all to one of the most beautiful cities in Italy and perhaps in the world, Siena in Tuscany. And I have with us, and I'm very happy to introduce her to everybody, Fernanda. Ciao, Fernanda.
Ciao, Rob. Hi, nice to see you. Ciao.
Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm good. Finally today, one of the few days resting. And so I am very happy that we could make it for this appointment today. So we can talk, as you said, about one of the most beautiful city of the world, definitely. Siena, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. Now, I just want to give a heads up to our followers. Very happy to say that we're very close to getting over 3,700 downloads on our podcast. And that everybody, if you have any questions about the conversation that I'm going to have with Fernanda about Siena, please feel free to write to us at office@througheternity.com, and we will be more than happy to answer your questions. And just to let everybody know that we were doing these wonderful Facebook Live videos that are now recorded on our Facebook page, and Fernanda did a lovely one of Siena. And if I recall, it started out with the bells chiming in Siena. Just to point out, Fernanda, for me, well, first of all, let's introduce you. How long have you been working as a guide, and how long have you been collaborating with Through Eternity Tours?
All right. Yes. Well, I started to work as a guide a long time ago. I mean, I started in England, to be honest, to work with Italian tour, and that was in 1996. Then when I come back to Italy in 2000, so I spent some time in England, and then I came back to Tuscany, where I am from. I was born in Siena, so I came back to live here, and I'm collaborating with Through Eternity. I think it's been already 4 or 5 years. I started 5 years ago, approximately. Yes.
I was very happy to see when we all got together with the guides from Florence and the Tuscany area.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? So you said that you worked in England. Were you working as a tour director, or were you working as a official guide of London?
No, I was working as a tour director. I was, and I had a local guide working for me when I was there. So I was just, looking after the Italian tour groups that they were coming to England, Scotland, London. So I was just a program director. So let's say that I started in that way, and then little by little I became a local guide in Tuscany, in Siena, Florence, and Grosseto. So I got the license for those 3 places where I'm working right now.
Yeah, I think people don't necessarily know. First of all, I don't think they even know how hard it is to become official guide, no matter what region. But for example, that I'm an official guide of the provincia, the province of Rome, and the outlying areas. So that doesn't mean I can. Well, I'm not a guide of all the other regions of Lazio. Things have changed a bit now. We're national guides, whatever that means. But that means for you, though, that if you're giving tours in Siena, Florence, and Grosseto, that you have taken 3 separate tests to become these official guides.
Yeah.
And just to let everyone know, you guys may have heard Robert Huber, who is a PhD art historian, that he said when we were taking the exam together, he said, "This is harder than my PhD." So kudos to you to be able to get these licenses. And it's so funny because I always find that being a tour director is it's a natural regression from that to becoming a tour guide. I mean, you guys have a certain skill that others don't have, and you've been able to observe many guides in action, and you've dealt with groups. And I find that former tour directors make sometimes the best guides to me. I really enjoy working with them. So anyway, what do you think makes Siena so special? I mean, it's not an easy thing to say it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I believe it. I'll tell you my take on it. But what makes you think so? If we're going to talk about Siena today, how would you like to introduce Siena to listeners, people who are not seeing visuals necessarily, but they're going to be listening to this?
Right. Well, I would say that, well, Siena, of course, in Tuscany, we have so many beautiful cities, but Siena is almost frozen in the centuries. So coming into Siena is like walking through 12, 13, 14 centuries, because very few things have changed. And you can really feel the atmosphere, a medieval atmosphere, which is so fascinating. I mean, the town, it's, of course, it has all the comforts and it's very modern in a way. They have all the facilities. But when you walk around the city of Siena, you have the feeling to be projected in a time that doesn't exist anymore. And that makes the town very, very special. Plus, of course, there are certain traditions that they are so old and so strong. For example, of course, the Palio that everybody knows, but it's something that it lasts for centuries, and it's not just only on the day of the celebration, but it's something that you can feel it every day. So it's really part of the daily life of every Sienese, every person that lives in the city. So I think from this point of view, it's a town that is very different from all the others. It has a lot of visitors, it has a lot of students from all over, but still keeps its own identity very, very strong. And maybe in one way could be seen also as a very but very traditional. I mean, a kind of a closed mind sometimes, but that helps to keep those traditions alive in a way. And the town is unique because of this reason. Plus, of course, all the beautiful monument and the art that we can see it everywhere. But it's the atmosphere that is different. Every city has its own one, for sure. Rome, I mean, Florence, but Siena is definitely, when you're walking through the streets of Via di Città, you're surrounded by buildings that they are at least 700 years old, and you can feel it. You can feel it. The atmosphere is very unique.
Very interesting. So, if I've heard that Venice, we spoke with Beatrice in her podcast about Venice and the mosaics of St. Mark's Basilica. She was saying that, it was a city that has about 100,000 people living there now, but it was much more, or maybe it was even less. But I mean, the proportions of the population have shrunk. Many people commute in to work in the city. How about Siena? What is the population now, and how is it compared to before?
Well, Siena, it's not a big city. It's pretty small. I mean, totally, we can count about 54,000 people. So it's a decent size. Let's say you have everything you needed, but it's not huge. In the historical center, being a hilltop town, completely circled by wall. Well, inside the historical center, we have the majority of the people because we have more than 40,000 people living there. So in the new part of the town is only a small portion. And living inside the historical center could be a little bit challenging too, because Siena is built on three hills, and nothing is flat. So that's what, when people come to Siena, the first things and the amazing things, especially from people that comes from country like, America, North America, or even England, I mean, London, everything is up and down. Nothing is flat and pretty steep, not just simply a slope. It's really steep road. But that makes the town very unique because of this reason. And population thinking, well, it hasn't been changed very much. It's not been a big, increasing or decreasing of people. More or less, we kept always the same amount of people through the years. Probably centuries ago. So if we have to go back, like in the Middle Ages, the population was a little less, but not much less than that, because we had more than 30,000 people at that time, 35,000. So the town is keeping quite the same number. People that are born in Siena, they tend to stay in Siena. Among the young people, you don't have this, kind of feeling of leaving the town to go somewhere else. If they can, and hopefully there are good opportunity to work still today, they try to stay in the area. They try to stay in the town.
Lovely.
And go ahead.
No, sure. Go ahead. What were you going to say? Sorry to interrupt.
No, I was going to say that there are a lot of students, a lot of people comes to Siena to study. from all over the world, from all over Italy. We have also a very kind of international, people that they spend a lot of time in Siena because we have a very important and old university, a good one for foreigners who want to learn Italian, Università per gli Stranieri. That's excellent. We like to tease and compete with Florence because, of course, Florence and Siena are still today kind of enemy. We like to underline this rivalry that has been for centuries. So we have a very, very good university and a lot of people that come from all over to study in Siena and spend time there. So
that was interesting. Can I ask you, because of course, I do speak Italian, and I know that many, many people really enjoy the accent, the Sienese speak Italian. Is there a big difference between the Florentines and the Sienese when they speak the Italian? Because
it's different. It's a little different. Yes, it's a little different. So as Italian, you can pick the difference. If you are, you probably can since you speak good Italian, but otherwise from outside, it's not so evident. I mean, from somebody come from another country, it's Tuscan language. So it's, let's say, the pure Italian, of course, but it's a little different. The accent is a little different. Maybe Florence is more like an open vowel. Siena doesn't have that too much, but definitely it's is unique. Yeah.
So do you guys still have the soft H sound?
Yes, that's still that. But the Sienese tend to speak a little more. The C is an H, and that's not a question. So Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola.
Exactly. Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola. Casa is casa sempre. But when they talk some of the vowel and they are closer. O, A, a little different. So it's there is these distinctions between the Florentine, but in Tuscany, but you just need to go to Livorno, for example, Pisa, and it's already way different, the way they talk. So
interesting. Yeah, I'm going to be having another podcast with I love the idea that we're able to, because I enjoy the fact that we employ many Italians to work with us, but that we have a true person from Siena, a true Florentine, a true person from Venetian, and a true Pisan as well. I think it brings a lot of cachet to our group, because I think people really enjoy that. I think they enjoy having guides from these towns because they're so unique. Now,
and you know how proud we are of our little green garden, right?
Yes. So I think, you should be. I mean,
yes.
I was working, unfortunately we weren't able to get together. And sorry, I'm determined, because I missed the dates for the unveiling of the floors. It only go on for about a month, and we'll get to that. But so we'll go back. But Dylan and I worked traveling all over Europe for our second series of the TE destinations outside of Rome. And I just was marveled. I've been living here for 24 years and going to the Amalfi Coast, going to Venice, driving through Chianti, going on the islands. I thought, God, the Cinque Terre, it's just so beautiful, so variegated. I think people don't know. There are people who do know, who understand when they come here for the first time, but sometimes people just think they see boom, 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 Venice, Rome, Florence. But there's just so much more.
There's so much more to see, definitely. And it's so different. When you travel to Italy, it's like traveling in so many different countries all at the same time, because our history is so different, so unique. And so it's really like, north of Italy is like being almost Austria or Switzerland, and then center of Italy is so different from the south. Yes. And that's the beauty, even for the Italians, because there are so many places, same things that I feel the same when I travel through Italy.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Now, to talk about something that's so unique about Siena, I think what comes to mind for me is the main piazza and the Duomo, the church. And about the main piazza, you mentioned that there is the Palio that takes place in there. And you also said that, most of the Sienese are really from the city. They are originating and they want to even live there. Now, the other thing is, How many neighborhoods, how many different sections of this small town are there? Because that's also connected to the competition of the Palio.
Yep, absolutely. These divisions of the town, it's a very old division that goes back to the Middle Ages.
Yes.
Now, since the city of Siena, we're talking about the Middle Ages because, of course, when you are in Siena, that's why you visually see. But it's a town that was founded by the Etruscans. So we are the direct descendant of this civilization. So we talk about 2,700, 2,800 years ago. And in the Middle Ages, for protections, the town was divided in 42 neighborhoods.
42 neighborhoods.
42. And each of them had his own army.
Wow.
And each one was organized in a very independent way, which was the best way to protect each other from the enemy. Well, I have to say that didn't work very well because the Florentine, which were the enemy in that case, they conquered Siena. So in the 1700, by Violante di Baviera, who was the ruler related with the Medici family, she reorganized the all divisions of those neighborhoods, and she reduced it into 17. So we have 17 neighborhoods. In Italian, we call them contrada, and that's what the name that we call it today. And they are so important because each one are unique area, territory. Some are bigger, some are smaller. So it's like, the town of Siena divided in those 17 areas with, in certain area, a lot of people. In some area, much smaller. And all of them, they are competing against each other twice a year when we have the famous Palio, the famous horse race competitions, which is something very, very ancient because we have first document of the race since the 1300. We have famous people that they were talking about the race. For example, we had Saint Catherine from Siena, and Saint Catherine, she's in Italy, she's quite important because she's the co-patron saint of Italy with Saint Francis.
Yes.
Of course, she's a saint, but she was also talking about the race at that time. And so we have documents related to that period when the race was a little different because the race in those days was done along the main street and not just 2 times a year like now, but any excuse, let's say, would be good to organize a race. Or better, if there was a noble family that was getting married or some special occasion, they would organize a race with a military company that they were involved, for the district, that they were organizing parade. It was in a way, almost a way to entertain people. It's something that today we have only twice, the 2nd of July and the August 16th. So those 2 dates, both of them.
So they're 1 month apart, more or less. One
month apart, exactly. And both of them are dedicated to the Virgin Mary. So the 2nd of July is the Palio dedicated to St. Mary of Provenzano. That's a church that is located on the eastern part of the city. So we dedicate that race to that church. And August 16, we dedicated to the Duomo, to the cathedral, to the Assumptions. Of course, in Italy, the Assumptions is the 15th of August, but we do it the following day, of course, because it will be impossible to do such a big, competition the same day. So we do on the 16th of August. Those are the 2 days that every year are done, and 1 month apart, exactly, which means that every year we have this appointment repeating. And it's a great moment when that happened because the atmosphere changed completely. You can imagine these last 2 years are the only 2 years after the War I and War II that we couldn't do the race, that we had to stop. So we couldn't do it these 2 years neither. So we are very anxious to have it back again next year. And we are very sad because we were hoping, this year they were discussing quite a lot to have it back, but it's a little complicated. I mean, you can really control the people coming into the square, the spectator. You can have a control over the number with the green pass and everything. But the Palio is not just a horse race competitions. It's a community. It's exactly, it's a community. It's a moment of being together, enjoy the time together. And of course, that's hard. It's very hard to control. That part will miss completely. And so there is no point really,
Sure. No, I think a big part of Italian culture in all the separate cities, states, towns, whatever, is a connection of togetherness. I mean, the architecture of the towns, built up on the hills, within the walls, there was a need to connect with people. So better to have it done the right way as opposed to...
Yeah, definitely. So we better wait one more year and do a next year when hopefully everything will be, finger crossed, everything will be back to schedule. And we finally will have back the dirt on the campo. We say that because it's like a very optimistic way. When things goes wrong in Siena, when something's sad in your life, we always say that the dirt will come back to the square. So, and that when that happens means that we are getting ready for the race, because we put a lot of dirt, we prepare, we settle the square. And so when that happens, it means a celebration will start. And so it just
it's like a sign of the continuity, something continuing that's been going on for over 700 years.
Exactly.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Exactly.
Now, for those of us, many people may not have ever been to Siena before, but they certainly should go. So I mentioned the square. It is a very particular shape that's unique. Mm-hmm. So how would you describe the shape to our listeners?
Well, I think the square of Siena, which is called the Campo, is definitely one of the most beautiful squares that we have. It's not a square. It's almost like a natural amphitheater. It's this, the square has a shape of an amphitheater, of a fan, and of a seashell. And, it was built exactly in the time when... in the Middle Ages, if the hill goes down, well, the road or the square will go down. So they just follow the slope of the hill, and they pave the square with this beautiful pavement made of bricks, which makes the square very unique. So it's really special. In one side, you have the public palace, which is a very ancient building, dating back to the end of 1200, which is still today the town hall of the city. So we have offices of the mayor and the offices of the city hall in the building, which was built for this reason in the 13th century. So it's amazing. Even in this case, there is a continuation of things, and it's just so beautiful with this tower that has almost the symbol of the city, the Mangia Tower. A lot of people know the name, remember the name because Mangia, the Italian word to eat. That's the nickname of the tower. And the nickname comes from the man who used to ring the bell, who was nicknamed Mangia Guadagni, eats all the profits, because this man was spending all his profit in the tavern and in the cafe that they were in the square. So
Mangia Guadagni.
Mangia Guadagni, Mangia Tower. The square is almost like the drawing room of the city, because that's where everybody meets. That's when, if there is some celebration going on, like a graduation day, everybody go into the Campo. If you have to meet a friend, you meet a friend in the Campo. In the evening, everybody sit down. They can play music very often in the evening when there is the moon. You can sit in the square and enjoy the beauty of and the peacefulness of the evening. Is really, really special. As the word says, Campo, you almost feel like being in a field. Campo. So it's definitely it's one of the most beautiful places in the city.
Now, would you say that a lot of tourists, because I think I remember I've been to Siena 3 or 4 times, and the first time I was there was at night, and then the other time was kind of a day trip, and I thought that there was a lot of tourists who kind of come for the day and leave. Yeah. You don't find a lot of people staying overnight, but it's beautiful at night.
Definitely. I think slowly by slowly people realize that they spending more time in Siena is worth it, because it's not just coming 1 hour, 2 hours and go. There is so much to see. There are some people still that today that comes and they just tour for 2 hours But then when they leave, they realize that there is much more to see. So the best way will be to stay in the city. There are a lot of accommodations, a lot of hotels, and being in the city in the evening, it's a treat, really is, because most of the crowd is gone, and the locals are there. It's a real town. It's a real town. So it's definitely worth it to be there a little longer.
I do think that lots of times at night, some of these places, like Venice as well, and I always say to people to walk in the portico, the Pantheon, at night, because that really does take you into this transporting into a different time period away from all the crowds. But the idea to sit in that square and look at the moon seems to me quite wonderful.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Very beautiful. Now, let me ask you a question that people, I don't know if there's any or not, because here I am being a tourist who doesn't know. But, each city in Italy, many medieval towns, they have very specific colors based on the quarries of the land around them. Assisi is the stone is pink and white. And in Siena, it is mostly made of brick, but it is a very unique color that we even have this color used in our lexicon. We have burnt sienna, or just the color sienna. Is that a correlation? Because it seems very much that the color.
Well, yeah. Most of the city is made out of bricks. We have a lot of good clay, and the clay is very rich in iron. So, even in the rainy day, the color comes out so brightly and it's so beautiful. Burnt sienna is exactly the color that comes from the earth. And as soon as you just walk outside the city, is that deep red, brownish color. So that I would say, yeah, definitely is the color of the city, the reddish color. We have also the marble that we use it, although for some of the most important buildings like the cathedral. Most of the marble come from the area nearby, because unfortunately we couldn't get any marble from Carrara in the past. We had a little problem in the middle, and the problem was Florence. So we had to get everything nearby. But definitely, when you're looking at the city from the distance, there are certain areas, as soon as people arrive to the city, there are some terraces overlooking the town, and the view that you have is a town built on those three hills with the houses one on the top of the other and bricks everywhere. So red burn sienna, the color of sienna is the red, is the deeper brown red of the brick, which is beautiful.
It's so beautiful to me. It is very, very unique. And, you can see here that, I'm in the UK right now. I'm in London. Through my window, you can see the brown brick.
Yeah, I know.
When it rains, it still has that vibrant red color.
It's a little different, although it's a little. Imagine the blue sky, the brick, and the Duomo with this white marble in the distance. It's so incredible. The contrast is really is.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. Now, to also talk about one of my favorite churches. So I have a few. All right, to go through the list, because I think this is the last one we'll talk about, what I think are my favorite cathedrals or duomos or basilicas in Italy. I have probably a top 5, and they would be St. Peter's Basilica, St. Mark's Basilica, St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, St. Mark's Basilica in Venice. We have the Duomo of Pisa, and of course we have, which may be, I have to see it again. That's when we have to come back, because I haven't
to see it better. Yeah,
was the Duomo of
Siena. Mm. Well, it's definitely, I would say that is all the churches that you mentioned, they are incredible from the architectural point of view. And Siena, you have to put that in those 5, because Siena is an incredible church which was built since the ancient times. So the first document, the first date of the cathedral dating back to the 12th century, although 1179 was the year when the cathedral was opened, built on the top of another small church, like happened most of the time, nothing that we see it today was done in 1 century, even, takes so long. It has an incredible architecture, which is a mixture between Gothic and Romanesque. And he has these mixtures of marble, white and green, dark, deep green that looks almost black. That makes the church looks very Moorish. I mean, coming inside the church of Siena is almost like entering a mosque. It gives these kind of black and white stripes, But it's kind of understandable if you think about the time when the church was built, because during those centuries, between the 11th and the 14th centuries, Siena was involved in many, many crusades. The richest family of Siena organized crusades. And when they come back from the crusade, they come back with the fashions of what they have seen over there.
Sure.
So there is a very strong influence, in the architecture. Consider that Siena was one of the richest city at that time, like Florence. In Siena we had a lot of merchant traveling. We have to thank a road that in the last 10 years has become very, very popular. And I'm talking about the Via Francigena, the pilgrimage road.
Yeah, we talked about one of that in our episode of the podcast. I would really love to walk.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity for people that like to do hiking. I do also tour as a naturalistic guide, and going through the Via Francigena is one of the most incredible experience, because you walk along the footstep of pilgrims that they use that road for more than 300 years. So that was a kind of the highway of the Middle Ages. And that highway crossed exactly Siena in the middle. That's why the town grows so quickly, so fast, and you need to provide, of course, churches, but also hospitality, places where people could rest. And not by chance, in front of the cathedral, we have the oldest hospice of Europe, where pilgrims could stop. And, that building, it's amazing because it's enormous, first of all. But until 1996, that building was the real hospital of the city. I was born there. Wow. Like all my generations before 1996, they were all born in that building that is right in front of the cathedral.
What a place.
Incredible. So the town was very rich. We had merchants, we had bankers. I mean, Siena has the oldest working bank of Europe, Monte dei Paschi di Siena. Of course, we are very proud of that, even if,
it's having problems now, isn't it?
Well, a little bit. It's still a little bit of problems, but the bank is still there. So still in business since 1472. And so thanks to all of that, the town had to show off its power and was able to have 6 popes in total. 6 popes from a small town like that is quite a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
Pius II and Pius III.
Pius II, Pius III are, of course, probably the most important, because they both of them belong to the same family, Piccolomini family. But we also had 2 popes from the Chigi Saraceni. The Chigi were...
no?
Pardon?
Alexander VII, Chigi.
Exactly, Alexander VII. And that was the last pope from Siena. So, quite a lot of important popes. And Alexander VII, for example, in Siena, called the greatest Gian Lorenzo Bernini to come to Siena to work in one of the beautiful chapel that we have inside the cathedral. So the cathedral, it's a mixture of century of so many different artists, because we are very proud to have work of Michelangelo, work of Pinturicchio, Raphael. Raphael came to work in together with Pinturicchio in a very special little part of the cathedral, which is the Piccolomini Library, and that's a small museum inside a church that is a museum itself.
Sure.
We had Donatello, we have Gian Lorenzo Bernini, Beccafumi, Jacopo della Quercia. We had Duccio, who was the greatest painter of the city. So coming inside a cathedral, talking about the cathedral specifically, you can easily spend all day inside a church because there is so much work of art. It's really breathtaking. And once a year, we have a special occasion, which is from soon after the Palio in August, let's say around the 16th, 17th. Normally, that's when they open it, the 18th of August until the end of October. They uncover all the floor of the cathedral. The floor, it's an incredible masterpiece of work because on the floor we have 56 inlaid marble stories made it between the 1300 to the middle of 1500. So it took more than 250 years to complete that decorations, and it's unbelievable. And it's not only religious stories. There is a lot of philosophy. There is a lot of story related to alchemy as well. So it's a very mysterious also, journey that people can take just looking at the floor of the Cathedral of Siena.
That is one of the wonderful times of year to visit Siena because
definitely.
Floors, I did see them once before, but I have to go with you so that you can explain to me much better because I did understand that they were important, but I didn't gather how important they were. But they're beautiful. And I remember specifically also that at the cornice up at the top that's framed with all the busts of all
the popes' head and the bust of Roman emperors as well. Yeah, right on the decorations of the perimeter of the church.
I didn't remember that. It has the Roman emperors in the church as well. What a fascinating place.
And then all those popes, which are from St. Peter up to the 1300s. So we have 172 busts of popes. We're missing more than a half. We're not going to have space to put it, but those 172 are quite enough.
You ever hear, is this true, the legend? Because, the legend is that at one time in history, there was a woman who masqueraded as a man, and her name was Pope Joan.
Yeah.
A bust of Pope Joan was actually in the cathedral, and that I think it was Gregory the 13th who ordered it to be taken down.
Yes. In fact, it's not actually there. It's not there anymore. It was removed because obviously, a Pope women couldn't be.
No. Not at
no. But we have in Siena a palace of the Papesse. The Papesse palace, which is, there were no Pope women, but they were the sisters of Pope Pius II. So that palace is just nearby the cathedral, and today is the Museum of Contemporary Art. So at the moment we have an exhibition of Salvatore Dali. It just reopened not too long ago. It was closed for many years, and finally they managed to reopen back again. And it's a beautiful palace. It's a typical palace that you will find easily in Florence because it's very Renaissance, typical architecture of the Bugnato, the Asher work. But in Siena, we have few of those, and one is this, the Palazzo delle Papesse.
My goodness. So there's so many other things now that I have to look at. And one last question for you before we wrap things up, because I am curious. So do you think, did Romulus's twin brother Remus end up founding the city of Siena, as some would have us believe? There's a statue of the wolf and the she-wolf babies.
Yeah, there is. But, in Siena, we want to be a little different. So those statues that you see everywhere, because we have it everywhere, they're not referred to Romulus and Remus, but to the children of Remus. In fact, when you come back to Siena, I will point it out. The Siena she-wolf, she looks straight. But the Roman she-wolf, she looks back at the baby. So the legend says that Romulus killed Remus, but Remus had two babies. And those two babies were Sineus and Ascius. They left Rome, afraid that their uncle wanted to kill them, of course. And so they arrived in the area where Siena is today, and Sineus founded the city of Siena. So the relation is still related to Romulus and Remo. The she-wolf is the same one, but different in the way that she looks straight because she's looking towards, leaving the city of Rome. And that symbol is all over, outside the cathedral, outside the town hall, along the main street of the city, everywhere. The Romans were there, but before the Romans, we had the Etruscans. So the Roman conquered the Etruscans, and they found a colony called Siena Julia. Siena Julia was then later Siena.
Wow.
That's how we get to this name. Inside the cathedral, though, there is a mosaic, which is the only mosaic on the floor because everything else is inlaid marble, which shows the Roman she-wolf. And with all the symbol of the other city allied with Siena and founded by the Roman, including Florence. So even for a short time, Florence and Siena, they were friends during the Roman time, for a short time. Just a little bit.
A little bit. Well, Fernanda, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to even work with my schedule and your schedule that we've finally been able to get together. I'm very happy, though, to hear
It's my pleasure.
And that we will continue to work. And I'm looking very forward to seeing you in Siena and to be taken around as soon as possible, because it is truly a beautiful city. I very much enjoy it. I've had such lovely memories, and it's so worthwhile to go and see. So,
absolutely. Would be nice if you come. We can, and that's something that, everybody should know when they come to Siena. It's very interesting also to be able to walk nearby those neighborhoods, through those neighborhoods, which each of them has their own private museum, their own private church, their own private club. So it's really unique, and you can really feel it, how strong is these traditions when you walk around the city and when you talk with the local people, because it's part of the daily life, as I said.
Yes, I mean, it's not such a large city, and it's fascinating. I don't think there are other towns like this in Italy.
No, really. I mean, there are, for example, where I live now, which is outside the city of Siena, we have same kind of Palio. There are most of the medieval city that have, competitions like this, which could be archery race or barrel race, for example. But certainly the Palio of Siena is the oldest traditions and very eradicated inside the culture. So it's special because of this, indeed.
Wow.
Indeed.
Very excited then to have other future conversations with you about these areas and to go into more depth. And then we can even talk, because I'm sure Siena has interesting foods that people try out as well.
Oh, yeah. We didn't say it, but, when you come to Siena, you have to taste for sure the cookies that we make. Siena is very famous for cookies. The famous ricciarelli, that is a little hard to roll the R, but those are very, very good. Almond paste cookies. The pan forte, similar to dry fruit cake, but very tasty. We have the cantucci. We have great wine, of course, because wherever you go just outside the city is wine everywhere. Brunello to the south, Chianti to the north. There are so many places, even outside the city, in the province of Siena, which are, unique. So if people decided to come, and they should definitely book through eternity, and stay in the city, and from the city move to the other locations outside, because it's a great opportunity to learn more about all of that.
Absolutely. I see a whole new podcast episode about the outside, or dintorno. And
Sì, bravo. Dintorno. Definitely.
Thank you so much, Fernanda. It was a pleasure, and hope to speak to you and see you very soon.
Definitely. Thank you to you. Thanks for your time, and thanks everybody. And I'll see you in Siena.
Ciao.
Grazie. Ciao. Take care.
Thank you for listening to our TE Talks with Guides. We have a new episode every Wednesday. Please subscribe to get an alert when each podcast comes out. Rate us and tell people how you enjoyed it, and share it on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Most importantly, if you enjoyed it, send us a feedback about the show. Also, if you are curious about what some of these people and places we talked about look like, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch the video on this podcast where we have inserted special images for you to further enjoy the story.